Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to two brands that have been with us for a couple of years now. And this is one of the things that I love about our events, that they're ongoing conversations and we develop relationships with certain businesses and we get to see them evolve. And we've definitely seen Revry and TheSoul evolve over the last couple of years, and I am simply going to let you guys pick it up. Give us a thumbnail, each of you, of Revry and TheSoul, what you are, where you are, and the size of your footprint. And then I want to launch into where we are with streaming media. Go ahead, Alia.
Sure. So, as mentioned, my name is Alia Daniels, co-founder and COO at Revry. So Revry is a global digital streaming network for the LGBTQ community. This is actually our 10th year anniversary this year. And we stream, originally actually started out as a subscription model because it was 10 years ago and that made sense. And then quickly pivoted and created our very first FAST, free ad-supported television channel in 2017 is when our first one launched. And then we just sort of leaned into that experience and decided to go sort of full force in the FAST space, in the CTV space, specifically focusing on working with television manufacturers and other platforms that offer FAST channels. So Pluto TV, Samsung TV, Vizio, Tubi, we're all across different places, and our footprint has continuously expanded, focusing on specifically, like as I mentioned, queer media, queer content, licensing content, as well as creating original content.
And how many people do you reach, and how has that grown, just say, in the last year or two?
Oh my gosh. That number keeps changing.
Okay.
I think right now we have over 50 partners where our channels exist. So it's our footprint for our owned and operated, but as well all of the footprint for all of our partners. And as you can imagine, the big boys like Samsung are not telling us how many folks are watching.
This is an interesting contrast because Revry started as a video first, as a TV-centric brand.
Correct.
Started with subscription, moved to pretty much predominantly ad-supported
Yes.
now. TheSoul comes from very different roots, coming into the FAST channels and CTV from a very different origin. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's right. So we started off in 2016 with our first show called 5 Minute Craft. It's a fun, non-verbal DIY crafts show. Became really popular on YouTube and social media. And essentially, we became a content creation distribution company. So we build fun, engaging, family-friendly content. And we have about 500 to 600 channels on YouTube across 23 different languages. In terms of reach, we are one of the biggest out there. We have about 2.5 billion subscribers worldwide. And every month we get around 30 billion monthly views. So 2/3 of that is probably on YouTube. And then we're ubiquitous across other platforms, TikTok, Snap, Insta, etc. What's changed since we were last here?
Because now last we saw you were proliferating a tremendous YouTube success into the other social channels, but now you're taking that and moving it into FAST TV and specifically FAST channels.
Yeah, that's right. So we have a bouquet of 9 FAST channels representing some of our most popular brands. We also have a JV with Banner J Kids and Family, where we make channels for them on YouTube, but also distribute them on FAST as well. And everything we do on FAST is replicated by video on demand as well. So our audience is used to watching our content on social media, so we want them to be able to watch it as and when they want on their own terms. We had to, and I think we'll talk about this a bit more, but we pivoted. So what you see on OTT and FAST platforms is quite different, that we make 22-minute episodes as opposed to the shorts you'll see on YouTube. Opening and closing title sequences, all the descriptions and metadata are kind of bespoke for what we call a sort of more traditional broadcast or streaming audience.
And you're really showing that it is possible to take that shorter form gestalt from YouTube and actually find a way to make it work on FAST TV. Which I think has been a challenge for a lot of brands that have been trying to do that.
It is a challenge. I think we're in a position that we've been, because we have such a big audience, we've been able to leverage that really successful. But I would say to smaller brands who have established themselves as a social media presence, if you sort of make those tweaks to fit that kind of OTT streaming environment, you don't necessarily have to have a FAST channel per se, because VOD is a huge opportunity, and especially now where the creator economy is a bit of a buzzword, that it gives the ability to sort of creators to go out and distribute their content on VOD platforms as well.
And make them a little more, the platforms a little easier to deal with engaging those, whereas before UGC was a bit of a kiss of death for formal TV platforms.
I mean, for sure, not only was UGC, but AVOD was also a bit of a dirty word as well. The platforms weren't interested in that, and people, to some extent, even still, see YouTube just as a platform where you can market your content, right? But what we've seen recently is Nickelodeon doing digital first, established broadcasters and content owners and platforms that are taking their content to digital first. Because, as we know from the Nielsen reports, YouTube is the most viewed platform on Connect.
Now, Alia, you are more evolved in terms of your relationships with the fast brands in particular, because in fact, when you guys first came here, one of the most interesting points that Revry had to make was how important that relationship was with the manufacturers, the LGs, the Vizios, who actually are controlling that EPG on screen. How has that evolved, though? I mean, because now you've got a lot of competition, like TheSoul, who all want into that grid, and you guys have made the point how important that grid is to discovery. How have you evolved as a company to both meet the competition, but also stay on the grid, be an important part of that experience?
Yeah, I think what's really important to note is that for CTV, content is king. We started, because we have been in this space for such a long time, we sort of got in on the merit of no one was really doing what we were doing. And so as we've continued to evolve along with all of these platforms, to Jonathan's point, you have large studios now creating their own fast channels within these environments and competing for that space. And so for us, we've really focused on two things in particular. One, we used to license a lot of short form content, and now we've really treated our fast environments like traditional television. So we're looking at 30-minute, hour-long television. That's how we focus on what we're doing. The second part is the content piece. So we're licensing now from Lionsgate and Warner Brothers and BBC, lots of big studio titles, because at the end of the day, when you're competing in these really crowded environments, it is important to be able to have content that people recognize, to see faces that they recognize, while also mandating our own sort of focus in making sure that we're creating content that does not exist in those traditional spaces. So, we always like to say that the queer community is a community of communities, and so a lot of times your content that was created that was considered queer was only focusing on one specific demographic within that community. So when we're creating our originals, we're always focusing on trying to make sure that we're speaking to other members of the community who traditionally have been left out, so that our environment creates a more inclusive space altogether.
Two follow-ups. First of all, you've had some really good hits. Right? You found some old, 30-year-old movies that you didn't know were going to have traction in this community.
Yeah, so for us, one of the biggest things that we've now licensed it a couple times, has been Set It Off. We've licensed it now twice, and every time that we're airing it, our numbers go through the roof. One, it's, recognizable folks. It's Jada Pinkett Smith, it's Queen Latifah, it's people that people know, and there is a queer theme in that movie. If you've never seen it, go ahead and watch it, you'll find it. But I think it's something that works for us, right? So that was something we weren't anticipating. Another one that also did really well for us is Drop Dead Gorgeous, which, if you've also never seen that, is hilarious, super campy, so fun to watch. And we like to say it's queer adjacent, but it's such a fun, film. And it was something that when we licensed it, we didn't realize it wasn't available anywhere else. We were the only ones who had it. It's super memeable, so going to a social perspective, there's so many quips within the film that are amazing that we had people, as soon as our license sort of ended, they were like, where is this? I can't find it anywhere else. And it encouraged us, it actually helped our content strategy to say, okay, we need to go back and get this because our audience wants it. I caught myself watching it 3 times on the channel. I was just oh my God, this is so silly. And so it's just finding random things that you didn't think were going to work, but you just pay attention to what your audience, and social listening for us is actually really important to note what our audience wants, because we always have an idea, but it's really important to know what's happening, because that then does translate with our partners, because we can go back to them and say, hey, this does well, look at the numbers, this works, we're bringing it back, we know it works for us and for you, so they're more likely to want to help us market it as well.
Your calling card is your audience. You're helping these platforms reach an audience that otherwise is tough for them.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, your calling card is just damn reach. right? I mean, as you come to these platforms, the Rokus, the Vizios, and need to get onto that grid, what are the things that are selling you into the system, and how are you leveraging the reach you've already established in social to make the case for them?
Yeah, so, I mean, my typical conversation starts with the phrase, your audience is already watching our content, just not on your platform, right? So, because we know we're so ubiquitous across social media, we say to the platforms, look, don't you want to keep them within your content ecosystem, within your garden, instead of them going off to YouTube or social media? And that doesn't disrupt our business at all. They're not mutually exclusive. And it allows us to kind of build a really rich content ecosystem. I think the last panel referred to it a couple of times about, being where your audience is. We all know how frustrating it is to kind of find the show, searching and searching, looking for a show for an hour, and not finding anything you want. If our audience want to search for our shows, we want them to be able to find it as many places as possible. And to paraphrase on the content is king, I would say, and then discovery is queen. So getting your content up there is only half the battle, because if no one knows about it, it's kind of pointless being there. And there's a number of ways that we work really hard with the platforms to make sure that our audience is being reached by our content.
Are you making an effective case with these platforms that, given this reach, you can promote them to audiences and in ways that they can't promote themselves, so that you should be a source of new audience for them?
The answer to that is it depends. Some platforms are more amenable to it than others. What I will say is we offer quite a unique value proposition in that we can really leverage our huge social media reach. So, for example, we'll put together a little video, pin it to the top of 5-minute crafts on YouTube, which has 80 million subscribers, and say, for more of this show, let's say a Halloween special, come watch us on X platform. Platforms love it because it drives our audience to, let's say, Samsung TVs, and in return they give us some sort of prominence of the real estate on their UI. So it's kind of helps, it's kind of a virtuous circle. But what I would say for people who don't have that reach, there's other strategies and methodologies we employ which we find really helpful. So, for example, a constant content refresh, giving new content every month, understanding what the platforms are looking for, and making it bespoke to that platform. So, most platforms will do something for Halloween or Christmas or back to school, but most platforms also do unique things to try and have a sort of different type of content for a particular month. And if you're able to serve that platform, they in return will feature you more prominently. And we found that a really helpful way to kind of boost content. And having a really rich content library, we have 6,000 episodes that we make available. That allows us to kind of serve a lot of those different areas and genres.
The biggest challenge, especially on the grid, has always been, on the TV grid, has been discovery, especially as we're watching the channels mushroom this way. I think, in fact, when we first started talking to Revry, that was a big cost for you guys, was investing in growing audience. Where are we now in the science of on-screen discovery or on-TV discovery? The cost structures, and what are the techniques that are proving effective for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when we first got on a lot of these platforms, for us, we were in a lot of places we still are the only queer channel that they have available, and so we have these sort of like holiday moments like Pride right now, happy Pride. But there's also, for us, we've made sure that we're focusing on LGBTQ History Month and National Coming Out Day and things like that as well. But at the end of the day, because we are a community of communities, we've been able to leverage all of the holidays, like Black History Month and AIPI History Month, and there's so many folks who are included within the queer community that a lot of times get left out of those other moments because they're only focusing on Pride, and that queer people exist all year round, not just during those holiday moments. And so in the beginning, that was a lot of our process and working with them, and they were excited to focus and feature us during those times. But what has started to happen is because those EPGs have gotten so bloated and there's so many different channels within it, it's also become a little bit of a pay to play. And so there are a lot more curated in like the channels that they're allowing on their platforms, because you can go to some of them now and they've got over 700 channels. Like, how are you going to be seen on that? That's kind of nuts. And so when you've got really, really large studios also having fast footprints, the pay to play within those environments has gotten pretty expensive in some places, of upwards of like $100,000 a month to be able to do marketing to get that discoverability. And so for us, we've employed one, focusing on those sort of holiday moments as well. But also, I think we actually just had a post that came out yesterday where we were doing the exact same thing, where it's a collaborator post between us and one of our platforms, right? So we're doing the work of also promoting that platform, because a lot of times people may know Revry and they love Revry, but they don't necessarily know, oh, I can go watch them on Plex. Oh, I have a Samsung TV. I didn't even realize that I can do that. So us educating our audience that we exist within these platforms as well, kind of garner some love with those platforms that helps them to also want to help promote us as well.
I wanted to jump to monetization because we've rushed through this very quickly. And let me start with you, Jonathan, because I think the monetization models that you guys have for these systems is quite different. How are you coming at monetization?
So predominantly through advertising. We don't have our own in-house advertising solution. We come from a background where Google or Meta on social media will be monetizing for us. So in Fast, we're reliant on our sort of platforms themselves or our technical integrators to provide that for us. Probably medium to long term, we'd probably doing that something in-house. There are other ways we monetize. So, for example, we do branded content for companies like Crayola and Hasbro and Pudgy Penguins. So we make content for them and disseminate it across social media platforms and also streaming platforms as well. So that's our creative agency division. And we also have a music division within TheSoul. So there's other areas, creator economies, other areas where we kind of monetize that and then bring that into our content ecosystem as well. But if we're talking about Fast and OTT, it would be mainly through advertising, through a third party facilitating for that for us.
And compared to the other social platforms, since you have so much experience monetizing very well on those platforms, how did the OTT platforms compare in terms of profitability?
There's a number of different ways of answering that question.
Okay, try two.
Okay, so the first one is actual sort of volume, pure profits. It's nowhere near the scale of social media yet. Mm-hmm. It's still a relatively, I know you guys have been on it longer than we have, it's still relatively nascent. North America's the strongest market just because of the highest CPMs. And in America, they're not used to getting as many free channels as we are outside of the US. So that's our focus, that's our target market, although LATAM and Europe are still good. But in terms of sort of percentage of profitability, it is a profitable business, right? Mm-hmm. We've been successful. Similarly, we're on about sort of 55 streaming platforms. So we're monetizing well, but in terms of sort of total scale, social media is still the biggest revenue driver for us.
Do you see revenue growth on the OTT platforms for you coming out of moving more in-house so that you can demand higher rates?
Potentially, that is an area, yeah. Another area that we're working on quite extensively is working with third parties and white labeling solutions for them. Mm-hmm. So we're adding to the stable of content that we have as well. And we're doing that with quite a number of different partners. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's do we look internally? And that's kind of a conversation we're having at the moment. So I'd say watch this space.
It's a fascinating transformation from a pure play social video company into a streaming service and how those business models have to shift accordingly. You're really coming at it from the other side. Is you've got a very strong audience. Your business model is really about doing a lot of this in-house, a lot of direct relationships with brands. How is the profitability evolving for you on these platforms?
I think we're really lucky in that when we started doing FAST, we were able to negotiate deals that were not rev share. Most FAST channels offer sort of a rev share deal where the platforms do all the sales and then they send you a check, which obviously cuts out a lot of fees and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we did a lot of our channel deals, what we did was we actually owned a portion of our inventory ourselves. We've always done direct sales in-house, which has been really important for us because one, we always say we can sell our audience better than any other platform can anyway, because there's so many reasons, including $1.7 trillion worth of spending power for the queer community in the US alone. Like that alone is enough for us to go to a brand and an agency and say, here's why you need to be spending with this community, and we're the best folks for you to sell and do that with on television. So we've owned it in that way. And then we really just recently started to get into programmatic. We've always focused on the direct sales piece of it. But for us, what's really been exciting is that we launched our own ad tech, Prism Riot, which allows us to expand our footprint outside of our channels, but still focusing and utilizing our first-party data. Mm-hmm. We built it for ourselves because we had partners who came in and they said, we want to spend more money with you. And somebody says they want to give you more money, you figure out a way for them to give you more money. And so that's what we did. And then we were able to take that, and now we're working with other publishers who are not existing in the CTV space, but who have audiences, and their brands and their advertisers are coming to them and saying, we want to spend with you. Are you on CTV yet? And now they can say yes because they're working with us through Prism Riot. So that's been the most exciting thing that we've launched and just launched.
Well, that's
this year.
another stage of evolution. You become a tech platform.
Yeah, it's a proper SSP and DSP in its own right.
Would you be able to go to some of these platforms today with that same audience proposition and get some of those same deals that move beyond rev share, that let you own more of the inventory? Is that still possible in this ecosystem, or is it simply too close?
I think it's really rare. Yeah. There's a lot more vetting in terms of what channels they're bringing in, and then there's a lot more vetting in terms of the deals that they are even allowing come through the door. So we're very lucky because we've had this sort of historical relationship with a lot of these partners, and we've been very lucky in that as we are getting onto new platforms, because there's still so many new platforms that are existing and coming up every single day, to still be able to have that. And again, it's because we can make that argument. Again, you're not going to be able to sell our audience better than us. You might go get a $10 CPM, I'm going to get a $25 CPM. It just, doesn't equal out.
We're going to continue this discussion in the roundtable, but we do have time now for some questions from you. Well, look, you're all watching this one of the interesting things out of this conversation is that you will find growth becoming a little bit more like them, and they will find growth by becoming a little bit more like you. But given that, what questions do you have of each other? What are you curious about one another's business? Since you're coming at this in different directions.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated. Your social footprint is ginormous, right? So even just shifting off, I'm interested in how you've been able to move from social first content, because it's a very different experience of watching content on a phone versus watching content on your television, if you've gotten any feedback from your audience, and how has it played for you, just kind of stitching together your short form content into longer form content?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So, initially we were definitely stitching content together more and more, and now we're looking at actually producing longer form content because it's a necessity, really. The good thing about our content is evergreen. It's not really episodic. You can just dip in and dip out. So what we're finding, you can't use vertical content, right, on OTT, so it's all horizontal, and we're just having to adapt to the sort of the technical sides of it. In terms of reaching our audience, that hasn't been a problem. I think they're aware of our brands, they're aware of our shows. We've got a good way of sort of bringing that to people. But essentially, our audience is out there. It's just kind of finding them and doing the right format that works for each platform. And I think what we talked about earlier, having the conversations with the platform, explaining to them this isn't a social media play, this is an OTT streaming play. It's the same content, but it looks different. Yeah.
Do you have a quick one for?
Sure. Loads, and this might take a while, but we talked a little bit before about data, or the lack of it, and the lack of consistency that we have on the OTT and streaming space. How do you deal with that in terms of sort of making programming decisions and understanding your audience? And what are the sort of strategies you use for kind of harnessing that data together?
Yeah, the problem with FAST being so young and new is that, one, there's no consistency across the board. Everyone kind of does whatever they want to do and give you whatever data they want to give you, and it's very, very disjointed. We have a head of data on our team who literally spends all of their day in spreadsheets kind of making sense out of what's sort of happening. Social listening is really huge for us. Paying attention to what folks are actually saying online about our content and about our channels has made a big difference in terms of where we're programming, what we're going to license again, what we're going to create a new season of. We actually are launching at the end of this month, June 22nd, King of Drag, which is our original show. It's the first ever drag king competition show. There's always been drag queen competition shows. And so the social listening piece of that has been huge. People have been like, finally, we've been waiting, we're so excited. People are like literally doing watch parties all over the country. I literally got an email this morning. Someone in Brazil wants to do a watch party. Like, it is a huge thing, but it's about paying attention to like, what's missing, what people want, and then continuously being like, how do I keep doing that? So again, for us, King of Drag was the first sort of like social listing original example, but Drop Dead Gorgeous, again, like I mentioned before, that one online, even their Reddit channels, like, when is this coming back? And it's like, okay, we obviously have to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, social media is such a great sandbox for that, for instant reaction, which you won't get on the streaming platform. For audience reaction, but also for content, you understand that what works and what doesn't very quickly.
Join these guys in the round table later to go further. Aaliyah, Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.